If you want to start or scale your property development business to 8 figures and beyond, then you're in the right place. This is the Property Experts Podcast with Ben Richards and Jack Diggins, two serial entrepreneurs bringing weekly insights from our award-winning businesses. In these podcasts, you'll learn how we found, funded and delivered over £80 million worth of property in the last 6 years, with templates you can use, deal analysis and deep dive discussions that will help you build your businesses successfully. We hope you'll enjoy.
Well, hello. Happy Halloween, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you've tuned in before, you will know we're two serial entrepreneurs that are committed to coming on every Friday, regardless of rain nor shine, and giving you guys as much value as we possibly can across the array of businesses that we run, including a development company, an architecture practice, a surveying company, and we've got some fun things coming from the various businesses today. Our goal is to deliver 1,000 homes in the UK, which is £1 billion worth of property. We're already, I think, about 11% of the way there, which is good going. Ben, your screen's going all over the...
I know, you just carry on.
And we do this to hopefully help you guys, hopefully share our pains and enable you to not go through it. I was actually at a networking event yesterday evening, and one of our budding followers and watchers that watches us described us as not afraid to go into the detail and show the warts of business ownership and property. So shout out to Umesh, who was at the event and was loving our podcast. We also collaborate with investors to do what we do. We're essentially everything but the investment in some cases, in some deals. So if you are interested in getting involved into real estate investment, we would welcome a conversation. It would be a no obligation chat. We've even had chat with investors that have shown us other people's deals, and we've, from a third party, sort of shared with them how we would typically expect an investor to look at the due diligence on the project, the due diligence on the borrower, and what things to look out for. So reach out if you would like an initial chat. We'd love to have a catch up with you. Today's agenda, if you're listening, it's the 31st of October, which is Halloween. And we've got some really exciting things to go through today. So make sure you hang around, and really, really important, make sure you ask questions. If you're not out filling your buckets up with sweets, fill your buckets up with answers. I just came up with that on the spot.
Money.
So that was pretty
Money's
jammy.
Probably better.
So the agenda today, so we're going to be talking about a tax hack. We're not tax advisors, but we do buy commercial real estate, and we do get advised certain things by tax advisors. And we're going to be talking about buying commercial property and what that looks like from a tax perspective. I interestingly saw a LinkedIn post the other day where someone started a pretty organic thread which went viral of how do you explain your business in 5 words. And we're going to be talking through each of the businesses that we run. I thought it was super interesting because it really consolidates really important words into your business. We've already talked about sort of our core values, which you might have seen on the previous slide, which is ambitious, creative and transparent. But this is more about the explanation of the business in the market space, which I thought was really interesting. So we'll do ours, and then I would encourage our listeners to do yours and comment as well. We want to hear what your businesses are doing. We'll be going through our Investor Open Day, which we did this week at Colney Hatch Lane. We'll be going through what does it cost to build a basement. Ben will probably be sharing a live example of that, so it'll be very current and realistic. And then we could probably give you a bit of advice if you're in different regions. We'll be talking about a huge saving if you're buying a conversion or land unconditionally, and then you will also need development finance as well, and how you can structure that finance to ensure that there's a huge cost saving. That cost saving in the example that I'm going to give you is £90,000, and that's purely by making sure that you're organized, which is a very easy hack to implement. We'll be talking about building regulation compliance, part L and part O. We're going to be talking about the event I was actually at, Reading Property Meet, and I've got some top tips of short, sharp things that you need to be doing in your HMO portfolio that we've been doing for years and we've had to learn. So these are things that you need to put in from day one. We'll be sharing what a staff PDP is. Anyone with HR and staff and growth with your team will hopefully know what PDP is, but we'll be showing what that is, what that looks like, and why you should potentially be implementing that into your team. Hopefully you know what lease plans are, but Ben's going to show you what real lease plans are, and we'll be getting some images up on screen with that. And then last but not least, before we go to the Q&A, we're going to be talking about lenders wanting more contingency, 15%. So hang around, ask questions as we go through. Yeah, we'd love to see if you can ask a question we can't answer.
Nice. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. Starting off with buying a commercial property. If you are buying a commercial property, which we've spoken about a lot in terms of converting to Resi and PD permitted development, Class MA, Class G, all that sort of stuff, you also need to understand this tax hack because it can save you a lot of money in tax. And you've probably heard the word bounded around, capital allowances. And that's what I'm going to be going through right now. But before we jump into it, I am not a tax accountant. This is purely some examples and some of the processes that we've been through on some of our assets. So I'm just sharing that with you guys, but this is certainly not tax advice. Capital allowances, what are they? Effectively, it is a offsetting ability with tax to offset certain mechanical, electrical and plumbing items within a property. That's the crux of it. This is a live example from a property that we bought 5 or 6 years ago. And you can see that there's a sort of breakdown of qualifying expenditure or qualifying allowances within the building, from cold water installations, heating, ventilation, general power, lighting, gas, power to mechanical equipment. There's things like fire signage, emergency lighting, even thumb terms on certain locks can be claimed as a capital allowance. And then there's a apportionment of cost associated with that qualifying machinery. What that means effectively is, on this example, we purchased our property for £786,000. There were £155,000 worth of capital allowances. So almost 20% of our purchase price is a capital allowance, which allows us to offset the amount of £155,000 against our tax bill. So if you take, basically, if the tax rate is 20% of that £155,000 is your saving. So effectively, we have a saving of 30 odd grand in tax by claiming these capital allowances. There are a lot of caveats with this, and this is why you absolutely need a specialist to come on board. And we would recommend using a company called RCK Partners. We have a great relationship with them, and we can also recommend and introduce anyone that's interested. If you email info@xpproperty or DM us on Instagram, or wherever you find us, drop us a message and we can make an introduction to you for RCK. They've also dealt with other stuff within our businesses like R&D, research and development, tax claims as well, for things like Aura and XP surveys. So if you want some R&D input or some capital allowance specialist advice, then reach out and we can introduce you to RCK. But ultimately, this is massive. It's only really relevant, and this is how we generally use it. If we are building a property to sell, developing a site to sell, then typically the capital allowances aren't worthwhile for you. But if you are retaining the asset, which on quite a few occasions we will, that tax relief can effectively be, so as soon as you start making profitability within that business, within that SPV, within that the development that you've just developed, and you're renting out, as soon as you start making profit, you can offset the tax associated with making that profit margin with this capital allowance. So it might be that you make 30 grand, clear profit in the first year of owning an asset, or normally you might pay tax on, you might make £155,000 in the first year, for example. You might pay tax on that at 30 grand, but ultimately having this capital allowance available to you means that tax liability will be reduced to nothing effectively. So fantastic tool. Great tax hack for you to use within your commercial property purchases, but it is a very, very specialist section of tax. and I might have completely destroyed the what it is in my explanation, but from a layman perspective and what we've done in the past, kind of that's how we see it. It's effectively a tax allowance, tax relief. And I've explained kind of the process that they go through. They'll visit the site, they'll write a report saying these are all of the allowances that we found on site through all of the MEP allowances and the equipment, plant and machinery allowances. And then they'll run a calculation to understand what that capital allowance will be at the end of the process. And then you give that to your accountant. And when your year-end accounts are up, they'll take that into account and offset the tax liabilities accordingly. So hopefully that's interesting and useful for people. It saved us a significant amount of money. The report itself, I think we pay something like either 4% of the saving or on this, I think we probably would have paid like 5 or 6 grand. So like 4% of this. But obviously everyone's going to charge different things. So if you want an intro to RCK, who are specialists in this field, then get in touch.
I thought this would be a bit of fun. I'm quite excited for this. So to our listeners, listen to ours, and then we would love to hear you do this for your business and sort of share the 5 words. So I thought this was quite creative because 5 words feels like a lot to describe your business, but I'm not talking about core values. We're talking about like a way to sell your business. What is the service? So I'm not talking like Nike, just do it. We're talking about, premium fitness brands for runners or something along those lines that explains what you do. Ben, have you got yours ready? I think we're going to both do one.
Yeah, I do.
Business.
I do.
So if you go on to the next slide, we'll start with Central Suites. Do you want mine first?
Yeah, go for it. Go on.
So I've got high cash flow, co-living, affordability solution.
Very good. Okay. I've got quality, affordable homes for professionals.
Yeah, yours is way better.
Probably a little bit more like external, doesn't really take into account the fact that you're a investment business that it's more from a user perspective. But
it's difficult because with our businesses, we're twofold. If you're a pizza company, you just want to sell how good the pizzas are. But with us, we're typically investment. So we're selling into an investment market, but also we're selling into a consumer, tenant, buyer market. So we've always got to try and cater for, so that's why I said high cash flow, because that's from an investment side of position, and then affordability solution in the market space, which I've actually got a slide on later. Good. Should we go on to the next one?
So I have creating stunning homes, maximizing value.
Oh shit! I've lost my notes on Aura.
Oh no! Do you want to come back to it?
I'll give it a stab, but it might be more than 5 words. But I remember roughly what it is.
Go on then.
Design. There's more.
That's a good start.
There's more. There's more. Design, not compromise, but commercial is what I was going with.
Nice. As in not compromising the design, but still
commercially minded, value add, cost savings, bloody blah.
Yeah. Nice. Good.
Yeah.
Cool. XP Property. I have got wealth creation for property investors.
I've got dynamic creatives challenge old developers.
Oh, nice. Like that.
Yeah. I was actually going to read out our article that was in the Independent magazine title, because that was kind of similar. It's more than 5 words, but it was property developing duo are disrupting the UK real estate space. How? So similar
twist on that. Nice. XP surveys, fast, accurate surveys for architects.
Nice. I've got surveying, saving architects money and time.
That's more than 5 words.
And is not in these games is a free.
But it's good. It's good regardless, even though it's not 5 words. Parasocial, what have we got for that?
I've just got social supported housing done right.
Yeah, nice. Like that. Social good in solid investments. That's what I've gone for.
Nice.
Yeah, very good. Let us know down below what are your 5 words for some of our businesses. Yeah, hopefully that's interesting for people. I think it's quite useful for even like the team to get involved in this type of stuff, because you get to understand a little bit about how they foresee things from the internal out. Like we've got obviously our own like views on where we want the business to be, but if our thoughts are not aligned with what the team think, then there's clearly like a misalignment of where the business is going, maybe. So yeah, useful. Good, nice, like that. Tuesday we had an investor open day at our Maple Rise scheme in Muswell Hill. You can see us all there with our high vis on and standing in the lovely penthouse that we've created. Really great feedback, which is awesome. The penthouse is 99% complete. There's a few, snagging items that need to be addressed, and shower screens, glazed shower screens to be installed. But it's a show home. The furniture's finished. The furniture is installed, and predominantly it is a finished penthouse, which is great. And we've had about 8 or 9 viewings over the last week for potential buyers. Sadly, no offers yet. Some feedback. A lot of it is that beautifully finished, lovely flat, waiting for the budget or waiting for the whole site to be fully finished before they sort of put anything forward. But fingers crossed we start seeing some offers come in. And from viewing the penthouse, obviously not all of those people were looking to buy the penthouse, they were looking to buy other flats. So they've seen the type of finish and the style of finish. They want to come back when a 1-bed is complete, when a 2-bed is complete, so they can touch and feel the actual flat that they're offering on. So the builders need to get busy and get finishing as soon as possible. But Jack, do you want to talk about sort of why we did it?
Yeah, of course. So we do open days. We do open for days for people like you, our listeners, which may be investors or developers or budding developers. But it's just a really efficient way to show product. We can have as many coffees, 1-to-1s, 2-to-1s, Ben and us, an investor, as we like. But when you don't see the product and see the sites and see how we engage with our contractors, where we spot issues with it, because this is still in construction phase, spot things that we would like to tweak or change, and also present, the actual finished product and item that we have. I would say that if you have sites that you've delivered, even if you finished them and sold them, and you just want to stand on curbside and say, that's one I did, the value that you'll bring to an investor trusting you, which is a really important marker. Investors typically care about security, return, and trust. And it's building that trust with a new investor. It's also building rapport if it's an existing investor and you want to show them more about what you're doing. We actually had 2 investors that invest, one current investor on another site and one previous investor, come to this site just to see it, just to have a look around and have a catch up, which is really valuable. Equally, it's good use of mine and Ben's time, all getting in one space, dressing a unit, putting some food out. We commute there once and back, and we can have a good conversation. Equally, some of our investors may not think of the questions on site. So if you've got a consortium, you're getting questions from everywhere, and some of them, you can prove how we've thought through the process, why we got to this decision from a acquisitions, planning, design, delivery, etc. And I think it's really important. I mean, we've always been extremely candid with our investors and said, that was a cock up there, not really sure what's going on there. We need to address that with the contractor. But it opens you up to be a more realistic sort of person that is actually delivering the product. So highly recommend it. And as I mentioned, it sort of brings all your investors under one roof, so that you're not having 6 meetings, you're having 1, and you're actually showing them product. So super efficient.
Nice. Matt Hampton from LinkedIn, thank you very much for your question. I'm not going to read this all out, but he wants to understand a typical high-level deal parameter for HMOs. And he's gone through a nicely worked example, which we can get stuck into at the end. So stay tuned for that. Basement costs, that project that we just showed you where we did the investor tour, we actually stuck the house on stilts for the best part of 9 months, dug out 400 ton of soil, and created a 100 square meter area basement down there. Various light wells at the front, retaining walls throughout, big ground slab. You can see in these images, it was the whole building was propped up on this steelwork and these props at the front, whilst all of the earth was dug out. And this photo on the left, if you're watching on YouTube, which is always the best place to go, you can see actually this is the photo without the floorboards, without the floor joists at ground floor level. So effectively, we had almost a 5 meter high double height space whilst that basement was being created. Not a simple thing to do. Quite a feat of engineering, really, when you see it being progressed and what the builders have done and how they do it. They basically dig out meter wide bays of earth underneath the existing walls, fill it in with concrete, dig the next one out, fill it in with concrete. There's a sequencing to doing that type of thing. It takes time and a lot of effort, but we're there now. It's way more progressed than what you see in these photos. It's plastered, and second fix is going in, and it will be complete by Christmas. But the basement itself is a massive part of this development, where it's 100 square meters. If you're looking at an average blend of, let's say, £900 per square foot, are you actually getting value back on that spend? And when you're at that £900 per square foot resale value, the likelihood is that, yes, you will be getting great value and return on spending the money doing that work. And I'm going to be talking you through a little bit about the high level figures that we've gone through to get there. So this is in London. So obviously, if you're doing this up north, you're probably going to be spending less than what we spend down here. But ultimately, to create the shell of that 100 square meter basement level, we spent the best part of £220,000 doing so. The basement, any basement, when it's formed, will need to be waterproofed, have some sort of cavity drainage membrane, which is effectively a kind of egg crate membrane that's fixed to the walls and the floors, creates a waterproof barrier so that if there is any water that comes in through the walls, it basically just seeps down, goes into some drainage channels to a sump pump, and then that water is then pumped out. So you've got a watertight basement that is bone dry. You've got pumps taking away any excess moisture, with high level alarms if there's any overrun or blockages and things like that. But the cavity drainage membrane and the sump pumps were also an extra 20 grand. And then you can see the temporary works that I've talked about. So these props at the front and this temporary steel work amongst lots of other temporary steel work that would have gone into creating this basement. That alone was £20,000 to create the temporary works. So to form that basement alone, you're looking at £260,000 for 100 square meters. Now, those that are quick at maths will work out that that is effectively the best part, £260 per square foot. Now, some properties up north aren't worth £260 per square foot. But when I said that in these areas, it's £900 per square foot, even when the internal finishes go on, and you're probably going to end up spending £400 a square foot for that basement, you're getting 100% return on that space because you're getting 900 square foot for £400 a square foot. So well worth doing in London, especially in high value areas like this. Not a small feat of engineering, but well worth it. And to see that come together, to see the vision of what we envisage for this, and to see it being brought to life is, that's why we do it, really, isn't it? So yeah, super excited to see that basement space finished. The stairs are in, joining the ground floor with the basement space. The basement and the ground floor is split into two duplex apartments. So we've got a 1-bed duplex and a 3-bed duplex, with light wells out the front to provide amenity space for those apartments. But yeah, that's a little bit about basements and how much they cost in London, just in case you're looking to do some yourself. Jack,
buying conditional, finance, and huge saving. So this is, I was trying to explain this with images and stuff, but we'll see how we get on. I was once told by a very wise man that what I'm about to explain is called book ending, which is why there's bookends on the screen. I've since used that term and people look at me a bit weird, so I'm not actually sure if that's true. But anyhow, so I'm going to run a scenario of structuring finance, and this is a site that we have recently got under offer, which is actually open for investment if anyone would like to ask or speak to us about that. But it's it's an office conversion that we're yet to get planning. The condition of the sale was unconditional. We think we've got extremely strong grounds to get the consent. So we're buying it at a discount technically to what it's probably worth if we bought it unconditionally. Now, if you can see on the screen, I've got two triangles, which is my best attempt of almost ramping up your costs of finance throughout a project. So you start with acquisition and the cost of finance incrementally goes up. Now, there's two ways that you can fund a scheme that you're buying unconditional. Two leveraged ways, should I say, that you can structure a deal like this, where you're buying an office building, you've got to get the consent, but then you need to refinance to get the development facility. That's the most obvious solution. The problem with that solution is the bridging finance and then the development finance, you pay arrangement fees on the loan amount just to sit in the site. So on the left-hand triangle, hopefully what you can see is the tranche to get the site bought. And then when you get the development planning, the second tranche, there's two sets of arrangement fees for quite a lumpy amount of finance. Now, the benefit of what I'm going to suggest is if you work with a lender that bridge and also do development finance, you can typically agree that you buy the site unconditionally. When the consent's approved, you then get the Red Book valuation, and then you draw down a further facility on the same product. And what that enables you to do is to only pay arrangement fees on the new monies. So the old monies that bought the site sits in the deal, and there's only one set of arrangement fee. You've obviously got to look at their cost of capital, and you've obviously got to weigh it up against pragmatism and is it actually worth going with a cheaper lender to get the thing over the line, and leverage is a consideration. But try and go with a lender that you can stay all the way through the project with, from acquisition to development, and then basically only pay arrangement fees on the new monies. But if you go on to the next slide, I've actually got a stack up. So this is that deal that we've just got under offer. And this is the total funding pack. So basically we're going to get about 2.8 million as a initial gross loan to buy the site. And we will then need almost about 2 million quid drawn down in the development facility. Now, if you work out the arrangement fee on the initial facility, it's actually about £90,000. So if we bought the site on a bridge and then refinanced onto a development facility, we're paying that £90,000 twice, as well as 2 sets of legal, 2 sets of lawyers, 2 sets of valuations. Some of those are unavoidable, like you will pay for 2 valuations. I would also recommend you get a special assumption put into the valuation for the second phase, so the planning of the development. But you can essentially avoid these arrangement fees. These arrangement fees are quite low at 1.5%. You may even be paying 2%, which would mean that'd be £120,000 saving. So just by restructuring it and ensuring you go with a lender that you can refi off their products with the same lender can be a huge financial saving. So I hope I've explained that so everyone understands it. But I think I have. That's it. Bookending, apparently.
Good stuff. Cool. I joined a CPD today, which is what does it stand for? Continuous Professional Development. So there's a couple of things that we do pretty much every probably 2 weeks. We have a CPD in Aura to keep the team up to date with suppliers, with changing regulations, with all that sort of stuff. And the conversation today was around Part L versus Part O. So Part L is all about U values, thermal efficiency, heating systems within properties. And then O was brought in not too long ago, I think, around overheating. And that is becoming a big issue in the UK. We're thermally insulating our properties so much now that we've got the opposite effect, where buildings are overheating because it's not naturally ventilated well enough, or it's it might need mechanical ventilation to actually ventilate the space and remove some of that heat, or God forbid we actually have to then install air conditioning to cool down the space because we've put so much insulation. We're trying to save the earth by insulating properties and making them less heat loss, for example. But in the summer, when they overheat, you're creating and installing a mechanical system to cool down the space, which is just counterintuitive. So there needs to be a balance, right? Today was about the conflicts between L and Part O and everything surrounding that. It ended up being a 15-minute conversation around Part L and Part O, and then basically a sales pitch for 45 minutes. But the bits they did talk about was somewhat interesting. But the overarching kind of conversation I wanted to have, or points I wanted to make, is that Part L, Part O, it impacts a lot of other stuff as well. So it impacts Part K, which is around kind of falling from heights, because you can't have a window. If you have a window that's lower than 800 mil from the finished floor level, you have to have a restrictor on it, or a toughened glass, for example. And then it impacts Part F, which is about ventilation, because overheating naturally goes with ventilating the space. So it was just to say that your architect should be all over this, but ultimately you need to have a basic understanding that these regulations have changed, and they are way more onerous in terms of what you need to look at, and they all interlink with each other. So it's no longer just a case of I just need to look at Part L just to see what I need to achieve from an EPC or a SAP perspective. You'll actually have to make sure that those solutions that you find to satisfy Part L don't actually have a knock-on effect with Part O and Part K and Part F and all that sort of stuff. And to be honest, I was hoping to be able to give you loads more insight from the CPD that I joined. But like I say, it was kind of short on detail, more on sales. So that's really all I've got to say about it. So we'll go on to the next point. Sorry. Unprepared for that one. Go.
I'll do this one. I had a call with Hayley Andrews this morning, who is the fellow co-host of the Property Investor Awards. And we were discussing, we've literally sold like 7 or 8 of our seats within the first time we mentioned it in the public domain. But we still need a couple of people to join our table. So it's the opportunity for you, at the cost of a discounted Property Investor Award ticket, to be surrounded by the XP team and learn more from the people around the table. We've got a really good table coming together, including Ollie James, who runs property branding, Ryan Beaumont, who I run the ground up with, who's delivering 500 HMO units at the moment. He's going to be at our table for the cost of a ticket. So if I were you, I would get a shimmy on and DM us.
Is Stewie joining us?
Stu's joining, but Stu is the most flaky man I've ever met. So maybe we should get a substitute for.
Yeah, we need a subs bench, do we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good old flaky Stu.
Fair. Cool. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Our table is one of, so I think there's going to be 1,000 people at this year's awards, which is just ridiculous. So there'll be massive numbers of people there. Lots of people that I'm sure. Sorry,
100 tables.
100 tables. Yeah, I mean it's unreal. Get yourself there. Comment awards down below if you're interested in joining us at a discounted rate. You had a chat last night at the Reading Property Meet. I didn't realize this.
Yeah. So speaking about,
actually, just before we jump into that, there's been a couple of questions. What does your program sequencing look like on HMO from exchange through to resi, refi, and what's your preferred investor structure for HMO deals? So stick around, and we'll get into those at the end.
Yeah, so Flaky Stew was supposed to speak, and then he pulled out because he moved house, but we'll let him off. That's a pretty good excuse. And we we did his measured survey at his house today as well. Nice. So we'll let you off, Stu. If you're watching, we love you lots. But the reason I said he's flaky is because if he watches this, he can't miss the Property Investor Awards then. Anyway, so I spoke at the Reading Property Meet, which is actually quite a cool structure. It was 3 speakers, 15 minutes. We each had a topic. It was very difficult for me, actually, letting someone else talk about commercial conversions and me be giving HMOs. But I dealt with it. I took it in my stride and I talked about HMOs. And then we broke out to almost like a boardroom style table Q&A type thing, which was quite cool. So really short, sharp 15 minutes per person. And then that sort of drove loads of questions from the group, which was good fun. I've actually put a couple of slides in to share with you, our listeners, about HMOs. So obviously the most sort of prevalent business in the HMO space, even though XP Property have HMOs and are currently delivering HMOs, is Central Suite. So there's some sort of data and sort of reasoning behind this. So if you go on to the next slide, Ben, I first like to start off with why HMOs work and why I think they work, in my opinion. So what you can see in front of you, and for listeners, I'll sort of go through it. the average first-time buyer is going up. So the average first-time buyer in the UK at the moment is about 33 and a half years old, which means there's a gap between, and that's literally someone getting onto the property ladder. And it's obviously worse in London. It's 33 years on here, but obviously quite a lot of wealthy people relocate to London. So there's an age gap between moving out from mum and dad and buying your first property. So then that means you have to be a renter, or you're living with mum and dad. Anyone, I've experienced living with mum and dad until sort of late 20s. It's not that fun. So it's ideal to support that area of the market. So essentially, the HMO model is exactly that. And Ben, if you go on to the next slide, so we charge an average of about £850 per bed. And if I tell a stranger that, they think that's really expensive. They think, okay, cool, that's quite expensive. But this comparable finance thing shows the other option for the people between moving out from mum and dad and buying their own home. So on the left-hand side, we've got renting a one-bedroom flat in Henley-on-Thames, which is where one of our HMOs is. Your average rent is about £1,000. I actually deflated that. You'd probably pay more like 12 or 1,300, but I didn't want someone in the audience being like, I found a flat for £1,000 and it's a pile of shit. I wanted to put a really realistic value in there that you could easily snap up. You'd probably struggle to find something that affordable, but to make the numbers more realistic. £125 in council tax a month, electricity bills of a minimum of £60 per month, gas 40, water 10, furnishing I've put in £100, Wi-Fi £35 per month, which is a total of £1,370 per month. Now, if you like Rightmove flats available, most of them are quite tired. Most of them are old landlords that don't know how to enhance properties or even spend money on them, and they're really sort of stagnanty, unhomely, unclean, untidy. And actually, some of them, in my opinion, I would have said that a lot of the private like flat market in sort of suburb and market towns are probably not even compliant. So that's, PAT testing, EICRs, gas safety certs, etc. And then our rooms are just £850 all in. So that's it. That's all you pay. And if you do the relative cost saving, it doesn't sound like a lot, £850 to £1,370. It's actually £6,000 per year, which is crazy. And if you look at the average house price in the UK, that's a 2% deposit per year in a saving on the average house price. So you've only got to do that for 5 years. You're up to a 10% deposit just by picking a HMO room over a flat. And in my opinion, our HMO rooms are far better because the shared accommodation is significantly thought out, design led, than a one-bedroom flat you'll share. So I know one-bedroom flat is private, but if you look at one of our HMOs in Henley, for an example, we've got about 1,000 square foot that is shared communal space, as well as your room. So there's a significant amount of space to share, and also the social aspects. That's why I believe there is a market for HMOs. Next slide. And this one's just top tips. If you're not fitting these in your HMOs, you're doing yourself wrong. So starting at the top left is the Inspired Heating Management Thermostat. So it's a remote system with hardware within the property. It means the landlord can control the heating patterns. The tenants can boost, but only for an hour. If you fit a hive, the tenants can boost every 3 hours, and I can guarantee they boost it every 3 hours for 3 hours. But this gives you an element more of control. But the beauty of it, it's got heat and moisture sensors, which you fit round the property. So essentially you can monitor which area of the houses are colder and which ones are hotter. You can then basically turn the rads in the certain areas so that you can get a balanced heat across the property. So it's basically to save you bills. PIR sensors in all the hallways, so no one's responsible for turning them off, because people don't. If someone gets out their room, turns it on, goes to work, they'll leave it on all day. And if no one goes down that hallway until everyone finishes work, that cost is on your head. We always fit Worcester Bosch boilers. Fun fact, their R&D costs per year is more than the revenue of the next competitor. So just really robust boilers, and I'd highly recommend you fit them. Matterport 3D virtual tours for virtual viewings. If if you're letting a property, imagine not having actually to do the viewing. So I know a great surveying company called XP Surveys based in Henley that can do that for you. It's also good for marketing as well. And also you can measure on there. So sometimes I go back into a Matterport link because we're ordering a new curtain rail and I know exactly how long it is without even having to go to site. A mega flow tank, which is basically to support a boiler and ensure that if you have 6, 7, 8 bathrooms, they can all use their shower at the same time with heat. LVT 20-year guarantee flooring. We typically use LG, like the TVs. It's invaluable stuff. It's not like click in or tongue and groove, so you can heat up a pad, pull it up, put a new one down, but extremely durable. We also fit speckled carpets, so if there's elements of stain on the carpets, it's not as obvious as a bold color. So you can see there the grey. And then last but not least, heat recovery ventilation within the communal areas into the loft, which massively helps with damp and mold. Even if you have a really well insulated property with really good windows in them, we find that because there's so many showers in HMOs, it often has so much impact on the air quality in the building. So we typically fit the heat recovery ones because obviously then you're not losing heating costs while you're ventilating the whole building.
Nice. That one, shame we don't have an image of it, but there are individual heat recovery extract vents that you can now get. So just like your normal bog standard mechanical extract in a toilet, it goes in, it's this big, it has a pipe, it has one end which has the controls, the other end which has the extract outlet, and it's just a single room mechanical ventilation heat recovery system. What it will do is bring in cool air, heat that cool air as it comes in, take out the stale air and push that out, and it's going to help you reduce that condensation mold build up in bedrooms, which nowadays is incredibly important. The amount of RAF that you see on landlords that have tenants in moldy rooms and all this sort of stuff. I completely disagree that it's necessarily the landlord's fault. I think most of the time it's tenants drying their clothes in their bedrooms, not opening windows, not getting ventilation into rooms. But this mechanical ventilation heat recovery system will help you sort of retain a little bit of that control and stop the condensation and mold build up in bedrooms. But top tips. Very good. On to staff PDPs, and what are they? So they're professional or personal development plans, however you want to see it. They often come in two forms. There's the bad form, where you're effectively trying to manage someone into better performance. So you create a performance plan where you're saying, look, we're not really happy with your performance at the moment. These are the steps that we want you to take in order to get you to a place where it is acceptable and you're in the green. And then there's also the personal development plan where you are looking to train your team internally or grow your certain members of your team into a position where it's a promotion or it's a role that they've not done before, but you think they're capable of doing, and you want to push them towards doing that. And we've done one of these recently. ChatGPT is great for it and helped us really kind of create a bit of a structure. But ultimately, you're looking at kind of ending up with a schedule or some tasks where you've got where that staff member is now, where you want them to be, how you're going to get them there, and the key deliverables that say whether or not they've achieved those tasks. And this could be anything from taking on new responsibilities, exploring the area that they need to adapt within the business, putting forward 2 ways in which they think they can service that new need, and then ultimately your deliverables might be that they've got 2 of those types of clients in the door, for example. That might be the KPI that manages that. But they're great for those 2 things. If you want a sort of an idea of a structure of how we've sort of outlined some of our PDPs, I mean, you can use ChatGPT. It's equally as good. Explain who the existing person is, what their role is, what you want them to be. Maybe get ChatGPT to also create a job description of the ideal person in that role. And then you can work backwards to plug in the missing gaps between where that particular team member is now and where you want to get them to. So use these. We all want high performing teams, and giving people a clear structure of how they get from A to B is going to get them to buy into that journey and process as well. Cool. If you do not have any accounting software within your business, you really need to be going over to Xero. There's a link down below for a bit.ly link to get you some referral bonuses, 50% off your first 3 months. It is the software that we use in every single business that we run. I've tried other ones. This one, hands down, is by far the best in terms of user interface, how many accountants use it, how easy it is to navigate. There's an app, there's an online website address for it as well. And it's just, I think, the best accounting software that you can use. You can integrate it with Google Sheets. You can integrate it with lots of project management tools. We've just integrated it within our XP Surveys client portal. So it's, talking and syncing both ways with what we do to manage our business day to day. And then also gives us the accounting output for management accounts, cash flows, balance sheets, all that really good stuff that you've heard us talk about before. So get your referral bonus down below and get 50% off your first 3 months. Cool. Going to be talking a little bit about lease plans because we're going through this at the moment. We are selling lots of units. We are refinancing. We are doing a lot of legal stuff. And lease plans are part of that process. Now, what a lease plan is effectively a plan that has a location plan and a demise plan of the individual flat that you're selling, so that your solicitors can create a lease around the plan itself. So on the lease plan, you'll want to be showing a red line outline of the demise of the unit that you're particularly talking about. So in this example, we've got a 1-bedroom flat on a first floor with a courtyard garden space to the rear. So the lease plan shows the red demise around the private entrance at ground floor here, a red demise line around the first floor space, and then also the red line around the garden. And actually what I was going to show, if I have got it open, is what we've done recently. Present. Because I've literally just made this week. So the lease plans for our doctor's surgery conversion is some insight into how we operate, hot off the press in terms of a live example. This is the lease plan for flat 5, which is on the first floor. You can see I've got the red line demise around the flat itself. I've got a green outline around this green line could be yellow, it could be blue, it could be whatever, so that the lawyer that's drawing up your lease can distinguish between what area is communal, what area is individual to the demise, and anything else you want to portray or show within the lease plan. So in this particular case, you've got a green outline around the communal area. You can see at ground floor level, that green outline also contains the access from the front door up the steps in the communal area to those top floor flats. And the other things that we've got in these leases is parking spaces. So we've outlined in a yellow hatch, it could be a black hatch, purple hatch, whatever you want it to be. In this case, we use yellow to outline the parking space, which will be demised to that particular flat. So in the lease documents, the lawyer is going to write something to the tune of flat 5 will have access to the yellow shaded car parking space labeled P9. For its entirety of the lease, blah blah, whatever that wording will be. One of the things that isn't shown in this one actually, and I can probably open one, is also private amenity. So giving access rights and for your lawyer to script and write what other access rights the client the buyer has. You might want to be showing some form of private amenity space, whether it be a garden, a balcony, a terrace, or whatever that might be. And we typically highlight those in a purple hatch. So that's what a lease plan is. This is the type of thing it should look like. Sometimes you'll have a master conveyance plan, which sort of shows the whole site. And the sort of demise of the whole site before then drilling into the detail of each individual flat, which is what I'm showing in front of you. This is a plot lease plan. for flat 5. And if I show you ground floor, this one has a private amenity, I think. Yeah, you can see in this one, we've got no communal space. We've got no green outline. We've got the red outline for the demise of the property, purple outline for the demise of the private amenity space, i.e. garden that they have access to. And then this particular flat has access to 2 parking spaces labeled P1 and P2 for parking. So yeah, that's whistle stop tour in terms of lease plans. What we are going to be doing with Aura going forward is putting a separate cost in for producing these lease plans. There's lots of companies out there that can do them. They're not cheap. You might spend £300 per plan, and maybe 350, 400 quid for the sort of overarching master conveyance plan. But as an architectural practice, we have to provide these drawings to those external parties, and there's no reason why we can't do these ourselves. So as part of our developer work, we will be hoping to kind of just create all of these lease plans for our developer clients, because it's, I think, an added bonus, and being a developer, ourselves, these are always needed. And it's always a last minute thing where the lawyer says, "Oh, where are your lease plans?" And we go, "Oh shit, yeah, I need to get those created." And then you might be 3 or 4 weeks away from actually getting those back from an external party, whereas your architect can probably create them quite quickly. Cool. Back to
what's next?
What's next? It is
loads of HMO questions coming in.
Yeah, do you want to pop a few of those up and say we'll do them in a minute?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're the ones that you've popped up. So
oh yeah, cool. And Dilly's thrown a grenade in. Renters reform is now law but not in effect. How do you think it'll impact your business? Dilly, that is something that we're going to have to do next week, because that is a whole topic in itself that I'm sure we can get stuck into. So you'll just have to tune in next week.
Yeah, cool. So I remember not that long ago, every spreadsheet that I had, HMOs, land, conversions, all of them had a 5% contingency. Every single one of them. It then, about probably a year ago, I would say, people started saying we need to see a 10% contingency, a 10% contingency. And then this week, I was asked to put a 15% contingency on a 100K build. And it's just, where does it stop? It's frustrating, because that is such a wasted amount of capital that typically you might be paying interest on, that's retained by the lender, or you've got to, have it in your facility. And it's just super painful. But anyway, this flip that we're doing in Abingdon.
Is it listed?
It is listed, yes.
That might be why.
Yes, I think it's a factor. But they asked for my listed building experience, which is, quite extensive now, because I just love the heritage. But anyway, I thought I'd share it with our network, because, could it be 20, 25? We'll talk about it like the price of a Freddo. I think in 5 years to come, we'll be like, back in my day, 5% contingency was enough, and now it's 25. But anyway, I wanted to share it as a bit of fun. But yeah, Ben, you are right. It is a listed building, but we have,
that might be why.
We've got a full main contract quote. It's not that extensive, the works. We're not doing any structural repairs or any structural work to the existing building, in actual fact. So
seems cheap to me.
Yeah, well, got my resources.
Yeah, fair. Cool. On to some questions from last week, which we missed. So sorry for those new questions, but we'll get up to speed in a minute. Who usually leads the fire stopping design in conversions with existing timber floors, studs? Fire engineer, architect, or specialist? And how does it normally run from design to install for building control sign off? Yeah, I mean, it's since Grenfell, since Building Safety Act, things like fire stopping has become way more prevalent. Ultimately, if you're working on any conversion or any project nowadays, make sure that your contractors, or you've got someone taking a photo with a timestamp on that photo and geotag to the location of almost every single penetration, pipework, cable, connecting through to any party walls, anywhere where it should be sort of a compartment, a 60-minute fire compartment between flats, for example. make sure that you're getting that documented, that it has been done, it's been done correctly. You've got potentially some intermittents or bats, or you've got the fire collars installed, the intermittent mastic installed correctly, that type of thing. Ultimately, fire stopping is one of those things. There are specialist fire stopping companies out there that all they do is come in and do the works necessarily to fire stop, which I've just discussed. But ultimately, if you've got a competent contractor who is installing that fire stopping to manufacturers and manufacturers' guidance and recommendations, you shouldn't have an issue with that. And we've never been forced by building control to have a third-party fire stopping specialist involved. In terms of leading it, I mean, I'm not sure why. I'm not really sure why an architect is going to be leading that. Ultimately, there should be relevant notes from a building control and a fire safety perspective to say what needs to happen. But in terms of actually doing that work, it's down to the contractor, whether they bring in a third-party specialist or they just do it themselves. Ultimately, they are the ones that are going to be fire stopping the works. And I've never been asked by building control to have a third-party specialist do it. They just have to be a competent person. Hopefully that answers your question.
I actually know a specialist fire stopping contractor based in Henley, if anyone would like an introduction.
Yeah, I mean, you see it quite a lot actually, where if in some bigger like commercial conversions or larger schemes where the pipe coming through the compartment floor has the fire collar installed on it, and it often has actually a label stuck to the soffit of the concrete floor saying this was installed by such and such a person on this date. And that's third party fire stopping done to the nth degree. I think there's a point where this type of thing becomes red tape is red tape, and there are regulations, but where does it stop? We have a third party specialist for banging in some nails into a wall. I think it's excessive to be going down that route, and I think with a competent contractor using off the shelf standard proprietary fire stopping equipment, you should be fine.
We need a contingency third-party consultant.
Yeah, you need a third party to check the third party's work, then a third party. I mean, it just where's it stop? Would you avoid high-rise office to resi because of BSA gateways? I'm looking at 9-floor office to resi site. I'm wondering how much I should add on top of build program for BSA gateways. Didn't we answer this last week?
3 letters.
We said
simple answer. Yes, avoid them.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
double it.
It's a shit show.
Double it.
You could be over a year in actually getting things signed off. We are definitely avoiding it like the plague. If you got a block that has a decent sized supported living provider on a 5-year contract, what yields? Oh, we did this one last week as well. Sorry, maybe I'm making it size.
I think we're just now onto the live.
We're onto the live one. So let's start with Matt Hampton, thank you very much. I've not seen your name pop up before, so thanks for tuning in if you are new. Can you run through the typical high-level deal parameters for HMOs that you're doing in today's market? Now, he's given an example here, and some of the figures don't make sense to me, just at the gate. It's mentioned that there's on a 75% refi that is leaving in 32.5 grand. Based on your figures, you're actually getting out 32.5 grand, so you're sort of infinite money, infinite return because you're getting all your money out. Your gross rent versus your net rent is
about right.
Yeah, but then it's something like, why are you only getting 1.6k per? I mean, if you're getting 1.5 grand a year, I assume that means a month. No, but these figures don't make sense. I mean, I guess the crux.
I mean, the 2 years 50% return on cash left in, which makes sense. I think the delta between all cash in, it says including finance, but like professional refinance costs, arrangement fees, blah blah blah. It's by large about right, really. 300k purchase, 180, 30k a bed build, 750 bricks and mortar valuation. That's kind of
that's massive. Like that's 220 grand profit uplift on that scheme. Which is
that is
almost 30% margin.
Well, so, I think he says at the bottom, this works, but it requires to buy significantly below market value, potentially 30%. So if you had 30% onto that 300k, you're at 400k.
Yeah, but I don't know
So
what the question really is, because that's a stonking deal, really. You're not going to get all of your money out of every single HMO, and I think this is probably something that, if you've been to an educational platform, or you've tuned into someone like Samuel Leeds or Progressive, like they talk like it's every project you'll get all of your money back out on refi. It's just not feasible. Yes, you'll do it, and you'll find some opportunities where the projects do that, but it's not going to be every single project that you work on where that will happen, especially down in the south. I mean, Jack, do you have like an overview of
I've got it up in front of me.
Typical project for you?
Yeah, I've got it up in front of me. So, I mean, looking at this is the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 HMOs that we delivered, and an average. And I will try and whistle through these. So our average square footage is 1,600 square feet. Our average bed is, let me actually add a decimal to that, 5.4. We're now really only delivering 6+. But yeah, 5.4 beds across 1,600 square foot. The build per square foot is £66 a square foot. So that's the renovation cost to take it from a house to a HMO. The cost per bed, including the build, is 83k. So that's purchase cost, and build. The purchase price per bed is 65k. The build per bed is about 20k. The purchase price average is 350. So relative to Matt's numbers, purchase cost is 22k. Works cost is 110. So these are all averages. Total cost 475. Typical capital outlay, so investment, 160k per project. Typical GDV 577, so total costs at 477 and GDV at 577. So not all money out deals, probably like 70-ish K average left in. GDV per bed 100k. Profit if sold average is 100k. Yeah, so our average profit increase in value, bricks and mortar for HMOs is about 100k. The percentage on GDV is 17%. The percentage on investment if sold is 30%. The annualized rate of return if sold is 55%. The refi value increase is about 67% on original purchase price. Typically takes us about 10 months. Cash left in average is 80k. Equity is 140k. Gross yield on cost is 11%. Gross yield on refi is 9.11%. Gross revenue is £52,000. Gross revenue per month is 4,324. Net rental, you weren't expecting me to have all this really.
No, I hope you're satisfied, Matt.
Yeah, I'm still not finished yet. Net rental £21,000, which seems relative. Return on cash, our average is actually return on cash left in is 28%, which is our target is 20 minimum. If we self-manage, if we don't manage, it's 15% circa. And that's it. Hopefully that's all the figures you'll ever need, Matt.
Yeah, nice.
But these are in Oxfordshire and high value areas.
Very good. We've got loads of other questions. Another one.
To be fair, Ben, if you need to hop off and trick or treat, I can do them.
I do. I've got to go and catch a pumpkin pie, running around in a little pumpkin onesie.
Yeah, I'll answer these because I'll answer all the HMO ones anyway, because we're kind of on a HMO roll.
Cool, sweet. All right, well, enjoy. Have a good weekend, everyone. I will see you next week, but I'll leave you in the capable hands of Jack. See ya.
Risky. Cool. Question from Jamie Tuck. What does your program sequencing look like on a HMO from exchange through refinance? So we essentially buy most of our acquisitions in HMOs are bought unconditionally. We don't operate in areas with Article 4, so that may change your exchange completion if you're doing a subject to planning. We sometimes offer on things subject to planning if we think we can get more than 6 bedrooms, but we also underpin a value at 6 bedrooms at a price we can pay and just get the thing bought. Typically, we'll be on site literally like the day we bought it, stripping it out. We don't go for much planning on our HMOs, typically because we try and do as much as we can under permitted development. We don't even go to detailed design in Central Suite. In XP Property, our projects are a lot larger and we do go to detailed design, so you should probably allow a couple of months for detailed design plans and tendering. With our HMO portfolio, we've already built the relationships with the builders that they know what site we're doing where, and we've already tendered it by the time we've exchanged and completed. So we'll start work straight away. We're probably turning projects around about in 8 months, 9 months in construction, depending on the complexities of the project, without much new build. If there is new build, add that on. And we would then, refinancing is really, really slow at the moment. I would have said the average is probably 4 months. I spoke to a broker the other day that said that you can do it in 2-3 months, and I don't believe that. I say it's more around 4 months. So essentially, no time to get the design done, 10 months in construction, and refis are probably about 12 to 14 months is our average project. Question from Sash Windows. How are you doing? Thanks for coming back on. We've seen you quite a few times before. What's your preferred investor structure for HMO deals? Put in all the money and 50-50 on the profits, or a straight 10% return on the money and charge? I don't know many more, to be honest. That's pretty much the structures we use. So in Central Suites, we either have an ongoing investor that invests in the business and accrues or gets serviced an interest rate, and they're not necessarily tied to any project, and we kind of grow our own portfolio. Or alternatively, we split into a new limited company structure with a portfolio building product where they put in the capital, we do all the work, and we split the upside exactly like you said. So that's typically how we do it. Obviously, you can self-fund, and some portfolio builders, like my friend Ryan, who I mentioned earlier, he lets the client own 100% of the asset, but just charges higher fees. We also do that, but all of ours are JVs at the moment. So, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That's pretty much it. Rob H, do you ever buy without vacant possession? And if so, have you guys had success vacating tenants using Section 21(8) or 8 to allow to redevelop the property? Limited. Absolute pain in the ass going via the legal way. The easiest way is to come to a settlement with the tenant, offer to pay their 3-6 months worth of rent ahead of them to get them out. We have had to evict tenants, but they're typically tenants that weren't in the property when we're buying it. It's a bit of a ball ache, and you also don't know the timeframes. And I'd be impressed because your investor also doesn't know the timeframes if you're working with an investor. Can you still fall into affordable housing if you phase development applications and conversion works below the affordable housing threshold? I'm pretty sure they catch on to that pretty quickly. If it's obviously the same site, this is more of a Ben question, so maybe we'll rethrow this at Ben next week, but I'm pretty sure they will cotton on to that because I believe that if you have, potentially 2 different parts of the site that look very different, but you've got to have a degree of separation to make that argument. So I think you'll get whacked with affordable. It's probably slightly different if you have bought a site that's already got 3 houses on it and you want to get 10, your new application is 10. But I would highly recommend that you speak to a good planning consultant, and Ben should be able to answer that anyhow. That's more his field. Cool. I think that's me done. We're going to come back to the renters' rights law, which was a bill, but now it's a law next week. Thank you very much for tuning in. And if you've been hanging around this long, thank you very much. Ben was very trusting to let me on my own close it out. But happy Halloween, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed the episode. Please do like, share, and comment. And if you could recommend this to just one friend, maybe a potential JV partner that you want to do business with, we'd massively appreciate it. And we really do we do read all of our comments, and we do typically respond to all of our comments. So I want to see some 5-word explanations of your businesses too. Until then, see you next week.